He was the top prize winner of the Global Student Entrepreneur Awards out of 50 entrepreneurs from all over the world for his work on early breast cancer detection. At the age of 18, he created a bra that is tailored to women with a genetic predisposition to cancer. It has 200 biosensors which measure and track changes in breast temperature, shape, and weight. Delegates, please give a huge hero's welcome to Julian Rios.
Whoa. I'm sorry, Richard, but I can't. There is no human way I could ever match those dance moves. So I'm just gonna get out of the stage. There's nothing for me to do here. So, as the Mighty Boys said, my name is Julian Rios, and I am one of the youngest entrepreneurs of the night. I think the youngest one of the night. An 18-year-old Mexican entrepreneur. Are there any Mexicans or Latin Americans here? Quite a few. So, I'm the CEO and co-founder of a startup called IGA Technologies. We develop biosensors for breast cancer detection and the prevention of diseases such as testicular cancer and diabetic foot. So for the next 15 minutes or so, I'm going to tell you what we do, what we don't do, how we went from 0 to 1, and our current efforts for going from 1 to N. And to understand all these things, I think it's fundamental to comprehend the inner motives of those who compose IGEA, our company, which is, at the end of the day, just a mixture of several different stories. And in my case, that is even before I was born. With 38 years of age, my mom wanted to have kids. That was her dream. But the perfect couple or the perfect husband never arrived. But she was really determined to have children. So she chose a difficult path, which was the artificial insemination. Back in 1999 in Mexico, that was not only dangerous, but society demonized that. So for her surprise, it was not just one kid, but two, my twin sister and I. And this is where all difficulties start. With preeclampsia, massive losses of blood, and both of us scheduled to born 3 months premature, the doctors gave my mom two options: death or abortion. And without hesitation, my mom chose death. She assigned our custody to my aunt, and she prepared to fight the battle. Thanks to the medical professionals that night and to her unmatched willingness to see us live, she lived, my sister lived, and after several days in incubators and intensive care, it was a fact that I will live, and today they're here with me. So why do I tell you this story, and not first all the work we have done with breast cancer? Because in this anecdote is encapsulated the answers to questions such as what motivates me, what keeps me going, and what fits my hungriness for tackling big problems. Because not taking my work to the maximum, not living my life to the limits, is being practically unappreciative of the life sacrifice my mom did. So please take that into account for the rest of the talk. So I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a researcher, a theoretical physicist. And I was never a good student. That is a good contrast between you and me, because if I was probably 14 or 15, I will not get elected to this Congress. But here I am. So that's an interesting thing. And my mom actually says that she did primary 2 times, one by her own and the other one with me. So I was pretty bad. Well, not that good, as my mom likes to place it. So the transition of wanting to be a researcher to becoming an entrepreneur happened almost 5 years ago. The day my mom took a routine mammogram, and the diagnosis or the result was completely free of cancer. The only abnormality was a small lump the size of a grain of salt in her right breast. But according to her oncologist, there was nothing to worry about, because this probably was a scar due to a first surgery she had to overdo due to breast cancer. So 6 months later, my mom took another time a mammogram, and this time with a very different result. The mass the size of a grain of salt had grown to the size of a golf ball, and there was not only one mass but two. The result was an invasive late diagnosis of breast cancer. And despite the pain and suffering this disease brought to my family, it also brought, or more importantly, brought a feeling or sense of treason. Treason by a system that we have trusted blindly, followed all the indications, and took all possible preventions that in the end resulted futile in the face of this disease. So the first thing, or the only thing I could do in that moment, was to investigate everything I could about breast cancer, the annual incidence, the methods of diagnosis, the ways of treatment. And in that moment, there were 4 methods of diagnosis: the mammogram, the ultrasound, the self-examination method, and the thermography. And for example, the self-check exam is the most valuable of those 4, and subjective, but also the most used. You don't need to be a medical professional to make a self-examination exam. And we actually started our webpage with a question: will you entrust the life of the person you love the most to such a valuable method? And I know you're young, or should I say that we are young, but I'd like to rephrase this question again. For example, will you entrust the life of your mom or your older sister to a method that consists in putting both of your fingers over the breast and making a diagnosis your life depends on? I did not, and I hope we as a species do not in the future. So in this investigation, it was clear to me that changes in the temperature of the breast were correlated with the presence of breast cancer, or at least a pathological abnormality inside the breast. So this meant that this could be quantified and turned into a non-invasive, portable, radiation-free, and tissue compression-free device. So I joined forces with the 3 smartest guys I knew, and we set on what now promises to be a revolution in breast cancer. So we started in the house of our chief technology officer with buckets of acid and copper sheets. Why? Because we needed to make flexible circuits. But YouTube and Google are not going to help you with that. That's weird stuff. It's new. So we had to get creative. And we discovered that Sharpie, the marker, has actually a higher melting point than copper. So what we did was draw the circuit flow, put them in acid, and hope everything was gone except the paint. So we had our first circuits. And we did that until we discovered that the gases coming out of the buckets were probably not good for our health, so we leave it for the piss. But then we had another problem. The sensors were too small, millimetrical, and the normal welding methods will not be helpful. And not a single university was willing to lend us their $1 million or plus equipment. So again, it was time to get creative. We took our house micro oven, took it all apart, recalibrated, recoded, readjusted, and ready. We had our own portable and welding system. And to this day, I'm not sure, but it looked like a bomb. It sounded like a bomb because it has a kitchen clock that got tick, 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 and then a big boom. And the first time we connected to our local incubator, the electrical installation went boom. And as a side note here, I'd just like to comment that 3 other speakers have in their lifetime blew the electrical circuit, so that's And moms, that might be a sign of something good if your children is doing it. So that's how we started, building the technology. And 2 years later, I am very pleased to introduce, I didn't brought it with here, and I have no slides, but at least in theory, Eva, which is our flagship product. Eva is a wearable patch with hundreds of sensors that go directly over the breast to analyze vascular and thermal abnormalities. Eva takes all information after 60 to 90 minutes of weekly use, sends it to our mobile and web application, where machine learning algorithms start doing their work and give a diagnostic to the woman and her doctor immediately, reducing time diagnostic barriers by almost 100%, which is the key factor between life and death for women with breast cancer. And to understand the science behind how Eva works, we need to boil down everything to fundamentals. Ask questions like, what is breast cancer? Or even, what is cancer? And cancer, at the end of the day, is just a name we assign to any disease that reproduces abnormally cells. Besides that, the abnormal reproduction of cells, most cancers have nothing to do with each other. And for this reproduction to happen, you need two things, oxygen and nutrients, which are transported to the blood, which is the main heat fluid in the body. This means that in the presence of breast cancer, there's an abnormal flow of blood, which translates in abnormal temperatures. And different tumors in different sizes and depths inside the breast have very particular, almost unique thermal conductivity curves. That Eva analyzes them, studies them, and finally gives a risk assessment. And finally, well, not finally, but it's quite simple to use. The video and most of the media get it a little bit wrong. Eva is not a bra, it's a patch. It's as simple as taking it out of the box, putting it inside your bra, take out your smartphone, start the exploration, wait to 60 to 90 minutes, and get a diagnosis of the health of your breast. That simple. Thank you. And as we progress, we see other applications for our technology. For example, Coeus, which is a code name we use for another product, is a men's underwear that can help prevent testicular cancer. Or Achilles, which is a small carpet that you use after taking a shower to prevent diabetic foot to go into necrosis and then an amputation. And finally, I'd like to make only two more remarks because I'm running out of time. The first one is do not be fooled by how they call us young geniuses and prodigies, because the real thing is that we are not very different from you. I'm probably not smarter than you. The only difference is that in the face of problems or in the face of disadvantage, I decided to see possibilities and not the other way around. And the second remark is that the next 5 years are going to be very chaotic, frenetic, and pretty interesting for you. You will either be studying or in the middle or finishing a medical or scientific profession. And who knows, you might be doing that while building a startup or building a company, or you might just drop out and build the next big thing. Who knows? But one thing that I can assure you is that you are not going to have a lot of sleep in those next 5 years. But where I'm going with this is that when you finally do, when you sleep at night, you're going to do it with the utmost pleasure and satisfaction you will ever encounter. Not due to the physical and mental exhaustion, that helps, but that's not the main reason, but due to the fact that every night you go to sleep, you will be sure that if the world collapses while you sleep, you're going to wake up the next day only to rebuild it. You should not forget that. We should not forget that, because it's our duty and it's your duty. Thank you.